All right. Robot roll call.
One true Ben.
Mike present.
Let's go. Hello, Internet, and welcome to another episode of Geek Fanthology. I am your host, Neil Cordray, and I am joined this week by the people that already said hello, but let's do it again. You.
The one true Ben.
And
Mike.
And today we are going to be taking a brief look into the not-too-distant future, depending on which sort of era you grew up with, either somewhere in time and space, way down in Deep 13, or my personal favorite, next Sunday AD. Yes, that's right, we're going to be talking about the one, the only Mystery Science Theater 3000, and also sort of how it's been incredibly influential in sort of the creation of the current,
Pop culture?
Current pop culture, especially on the internet.
Comedic Zeitgeist.
Yes, there is words.
And the funny thing is, you say the one and the only, but there have actually been 4 iterations.
Yeah, but it's all the same thing, though.
Well, it changes each time, and that's I think, the beauty
Sort
of
of.
MST3K.
So it changes, but it remains the same.
Remains true to its roots.
And honestly, if you really want to get nitpicky, 6. But
I mean, in my opinion, that's like saying Nintendo, Super Nintendo, Nintendo 64. It's all still just Nintendo.
yeah, I know. I'm gonna one up him.
In that case, 2 of them.
But of course, before that, do we have anything we want to signal boost? Anything interesting we ran across? I too saw the trailer for that Arnold Schwarzenegger Jackie Chan movie.
Yeah.
That looks really damn cool.
Yeah, Iron Mask. Let's see.
Because Arnold Schwarzenegger's like a Prussian pirate.
Right?
That kind of stuff. It's like crypto pop culture zoology. It's like that's so fucking weird that I must consume it. Kind of like with your recent Nicolas Cage movie.
Oh yeah. Which was, by the way, fantastic.
Right.
It was a good Nicolas Cage movie, and it was a really good adaptation of The Color Out of Space, too.
So, been watching a fun little thing on Netflix called Handsome Siblings. It's subtitled, very Japanese.
Is it about attractive people that are siblings?
It's about 2 brothers separated at birth.
This is very much a snakes on a plane, John dies at the end situation, so I just thought that was
right, yeah.
Except with spoilers, John didn't die at the end. At least not of the movie.
Mm.
He died at the end of a lot of the short stories, but not at the movie. Not of the movie, which was frustrating.
That is weird.
Yeah, but then Penn and Teller get killed.
False advertising.
Oh no, they died at the end. But that's my signal boost. Fun Netflix show.
By the time this episode goes live, Castlevania Season 3 will have been out.
Oh.
I don't know that we'll want to do an episode on that, but I definitely going to freaking watch it.
Well, Castlevania is always worth a good episode.
I feel the same way, because Season 1 and 2 were very... It's a show that lends itself to, shall we say... analysis,
the geeking out
or critiques or whatever. Not even just more than geeking out. I'm talking about more like if you're in a classroom or a lecture hall or something and you're like analyzing an influential book or movie or something. Like it's surprisingly deep for being like an animated series based on a video game.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So I feel it's worth an episode.
Well, then we'll have to watch it and make sure that the writing didn't massively decline from season 2 to 3. But
I highly doubt it.
We'll put that in the old docket.
Yes. I have a couple of things here for the signal boost. First of all, I didn't realize this, but Final Fantasy XIV has a free trial version, and it's unique in that it's not like, hey, try the game for 7 days or 14 days or whatever. It's like, hey, play the game as much as you want up to this level with like a handful of restrictions. So anyone that's, a Final Fantasy fan or anyone that just wants to try a different, unique MMO, definitely try that out. You can basically just create a Square Enix, or Squeenix as we like to say, ID, and then download the client and you're just off to the races. That's all you got to do. There's no buy-in or anything. You can try it out, and then if you do decide to subscribe, get the game, then you just have a simple process of upgrading your account to a regular account, and I presumably 30 days free, just like if you bought a game in a box in the olden days. And then the other thing is I just started watching Harley Quinn, the animated series that was on the whatever that DC
Universe
service or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And holy crap, it is good. I was surprised at just how entertaining it is. And also, it's just super weird to watch a DC animated thing where they're dropping fucks all over the place and there's all this bloody violence and stuff. It's a very adult show, but it's not adult in the immature sense, right?
Yeah.
It's well written and everything. It just happens to have F-bombs and explicit violence and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's really funny and interesting, and I'm about 5 episodes in now. I think there have been 13 episodes so far, and yeah, it's pretty great. That's about all I got.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't have much other than Castlevania Season 3 will be out by the time this episode comes out. Also, I'm going to go ahead and apologize in advance. Next week's episode will probably be a little late, like all the episodes have been so far this year. Next time's episode, I should say, because there's going to be a new Challenge League coming out for Path of Exile in 2 weeks, and I'm probably going to be distracted.
I have no self-discipline.
Well, no, it's not that I have no self-discipline, it's that I want to do something else.
Right? Potato.
I'm going to keep saying this for a little bit. Please find our YouTube channel and subscribe. The reason I say find our YouTube channel is because until you have 100 subscribers, you can't get youtube.com/whatever your actual channel name is.
Yeah.
We are Working Theory Productions. You can find us. Please do. Because if you can get us to 100 subscribers, then it'll be easy to find, and it'll help us to build the brand a little bit, even if you don't watch us on YouTube.
Hit the subscribe button.
Ring
All
that
the
bell.
other things, yeah.
Yep.
Comment, like,
you know the
dislike, who cares?
Do something, engage in some
Yes.
way.
Do something. Engage.
Yes. Audience engagement counts. I recently also invited every one of my friends list who didn't like the Facebook page to like our Facebook page on Facebook. If you're listening, please like us on Facebook. I know it's irritating, but the reason everyone asks for it is because asking for it works and helps.
Yep. So.
That's about all there is there, though. So, the spoiler of the week. We had a few options that sprung to my mind as sort of one of the bigger Misties in this group. We could go with the many various and sundry names of
MST.
No, I was going to say Buck Ryder? Jack Ryder, sorry. We put our faith in Blast Hard Cheese.
Oh yeah, Big Mick Large Cheese.
Yes. I personally am inclined instead to go with They Tried to Kill Me with a Forklift. Which is a reoccurring gag from The Fugitive Alien. There were 2 movies called Fugitive Alien 1 and 2, and that was a reoccurring gag with he tried to kill me with a forklift,
I gotta say,
all over
if
the
there
damn
was an
place.
obvious title for something that's gonna be a B movie, it's Fugitive Alien.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
That's just B movie written all over it.
Or you could go with what MST likes to use for a lot of its thing, which is Watch Out for Snakes. And I can't even remember what that's from. I think it's Red Zone Cuba or something, but... So, Mystery Science Theater 3000 was a fun little public access show in
Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Minneapolis on KTMA, which was what I was referring to as... That was actually the first era.
Right, that was the first year before it went on to
Comedy Central.
It was the Comedy Channel
Yeah.
at the time.
Yeah.
And then there was season 1 with Joel, and then there was season 2 where Servo got his new voice, which was 3. Then there was Mike with the Mads. Then there was Mike with Mike in the future with Amy Jo Pell, and then there was the new stuff. 6.
So what I'm thinking of is iterations was public access,
Uh-huh.
the Comedy Channel, Sci-Fi, and
Netflix.
then Netflix.
That's another fair way to break it down, which is pretty much the same way I broke it down. Just I broke down an extra little bit.
Now,
when
they did the Kickstarter and relaunched or revived or whatever, was that I'm a little unclear on that.
That's Felicia Day and Patton Oswalt as the Mads.
Well,
with Jonah Hill as the new guinea pig.
So here's what's confusing to me. It's a Netflix thing, but it was a Kickstarter thing. So what the fuck actually happened?
Okay, so here's what the fuck actually happened. They kickstarted the creation, the revival of the show.
Yeah.
With full intention to simply produce episodes and make them available online.
Right.
Netflix then said to them, "Hi, we have a big audience.
Right.
We would like to put your show on our platform.
We give you value, you give us value, kind of a thing."
Yes.
Oh, so this is a Legend of Vox Machina situation. So, hugely successful Kickstarter, and then Amazon picked it up to go on Amazon Prime, so it's analogous
something
to
like,
an extent.
Hopefully not like Legend. Hopefully, Legend of Vox Machina isn't going to be like where it'll get dropped by Amazon after the second season, and is once again looking for a home.
So they're off drifting right now.
At the moment, yeah. To be fair, honestly, as much as I kickstarted the revival, I didn't like the new episodes as much as the old episodes. The comedy styling was a little more rapid fire than I wanted it to be.
The actual riffing, you mean?
Yeah, the riffing was more nonstop. And I don't know. I liked it okay. It just wasn't like the old stuff, in my opinion.
Right.
Well, and you got to remember, starting with Joel, who was so laid back that you were surprised. He was surprised when his heart beat.
Yeah.
Joel reminded me of that guy that got stoned and watched movies on, over the weekend and riffed on them.
Yep. Well, it should be actually pointed out here before we go too far that MST3K actually owes its existence to even older forms of riffing, whether they've acknowledged it or not. There's very heavy influences from like Sven Gulli. If you are not familiar with, okay.
Nope.
Okay, so in the long times of yesteryear, you're familiar with Elvira, right? Mistress of the Night?
Yes.
Yeah.
Sven Gulli was Sven of the Dark, whatever. Mistress of the Night, Mrs. the Dark, whatever. Sven Gulli was sort of a colleague of hers, as it were, typically playing B horror movies.
Okay.
And at commercial breaks, he would have some thing to say, making joke or what have you about thing that just happened,
right.
And then on the return, some other joke, and now we return you to our movie. And in fact, someone is still going on currently as son of Sven Gulli, even to this day, even though he's not actually his son, but carries that mantle. There's a channel that my dad gets that shows him like once a month, and it's really interesting. It's because it's a throwback to old, this was something that was going to be on UHF TV,
and then on USA Network.
Yeah.
I mean, this goes back to USA Network, back in the channel 36 on your cable dial.
It was where we recorded our VHS copy of Clash of the Titans, the original. Actually, I think that was TNT technically, but
I mean, yeah, this goes back to the early days of, of cable,
Yes.
because it was started off as a public access show. And I mean, really what you're looking at is, it's a low budget thing, because you can tell everything there looks handmade.
Yep.
Because it is.
And
That was one of the things I learned, by the way, when I was looking at some of the history and info on the franchise, if you will, is how they made the shadow vision stuff, right? Where they would do, they would have the actual human would be wearing all dark clothing, and then they'd have this material they put up and make sure everything's all painted or blacked out or whatever.
Yep.
To give this uniform look to it, and that became a whole thing in and of itself. The whole shadow vision thing,
Right.
Or Shadowrama is what it's called.
Shadowrama,
Yeah, Shadowrama.
yeah, and I mean, how much lower budget can you get than that?
I think that's part of the
Then
charm.
handmade puppets painted black in front of a
Right.
green screen, right?
Yeah.
For a screen, yeah, riffing on a movie, I mean, and then of course you have the host spots.
The thing that MST really kind of pioneered, yes, thank you, was riffing during the movie as well,
Right.
as opposed to just at interstitials between.
Right.
Like I said, Svengoolie has has influence, but one, neither of you had ever fucking heard of him,
Right.
and two,
I think I've heard the name somewhere, but didn't have
Yeah.
any context for it.
Right.
yeah, and two, they iterated on that to create what they did.
Yeah.
And they made movies, and they didn't make movies, they made movies better. They made bad movies better.
Yeah, bad movies watchable. And
To the tune of Santa Claus Conquers the Martians is a movie I watch every year around Christmas time.
And they also brought to light, some of the worst movies ever made, but also bad movies that are so bad they're good.
Yeah, a lot of movies that they highlight are definitely in the so bad they're good territory.
Yeah.
Because and to briefly plug an episode from season 2, so bad they're good. We determined one of the main criteria is earnestness in its construction.
Right.
You have to have been trying to make something good, and you have to believe that you were making something good, and you
just
have to
be
have been
so
so
bad.
wrong.
They're so bad at it.
The Room.
The Room is the
being
perfect-
quintessential example.
Yeah,
of
he
this.
spent like $5 million of his own money to make that movie. No one's quite sure where he has the money from, but then I'm pretty sure he's a vampire. Or some other, eldritch immortal thing.
And so suddenly you break through bad
Yeah.
to, my God, this is actually entertaining.
Yes, I could watch that again so quickly and laugh at it incessantly.
Well, it's important to remember that entertaining does not necessarily have an alignment of good or bad. It's just
Right.
entertaining.
It's
Right.
true.
Exactly. So, I mean, but yeah, and the thing is that this was okay. So the thing that to me, makes MST3K what it is that they were just having a good time.
Yeah.
I mean, this was just hey, we've got a public, spot. Let's do the thing.
Right.
Let's have a little fun. They believed in what they were doing.
Well,
They enjoyed what they were doing.
Joel said that the idea of doing it on the public access channel was that this is something he did with his friends anyway,
Right.
at home,
Right.
and
We'll share the wealth. Right.
and there was a time slot that opened up.
Right.
And they're like, well, we could do this. You got the
It's like a
licenses to
serendipitous
all these
thing going on.
crap old movies from the 50s. Let's do it.
Right? Yeah. And I mean, the thing was they weren't trying to do something spectacular.
No, they were just having a fun time and sharing it with whoever wanted to see it.
I think this is kind of like you talk a lot about now where people watch specific streams or like follow YouTube personalities or whatever, and you have all these little micro fandoms going on. And a lot of the thing about that is because what makes that people engage in what makes it special is that it's this more of an intimate thing, which is odd to say because it's the internet, right? But it's an intimate thing in the sense that like the creators actually respond to comments and like actually like shout out, like it's a thing where it's more direct. There's not all these gatekeepers with distributors and big companies and stuff in between. It's just the creators of the content and the consumers of the content.
Right.
And this is a thing where like you had some kind of foreshadowing of that in the execution of the franchise, where like they kind of built this weird grassroots community kind of thing, this fandom.
Keep
before the internet was even
the
a
tapes.
thing.
Yeah,
Exactly.
which goes back to the VHS era when
Yeah.
this first came out. Was it the late '90s? Because it started in '96.
It was like mid to late '90s was its original run.
So it's like 25 years ago, 25 years ago. Yeah, and they were like, hey, they weren't trying to monetize it.
By the way, that is my first exposure, I think, to MST3K was the VHS MST3K the movie in like the late '90s. I want to say either that or a Comedy Central rerun.
See, I saw it when it was on Comedy Central.
I definitely also became aware of it during the comedy era.
Right. I can't remember. It's kind of hazy if I saw the movie first and then I started watching the show, or if the show's kind of on in the background and then my brother rented the movie. One of those, but it was around the same time. And that was my main exposure to it.
Of course, that's the thing is it became like I said, I think it became this community that grew.
Right.
Because of the fans. Because they
Started actually in '88, by the way.
Was it in '88? God.
Back in the original KTMA runs, '88 to '99
Yeah,
were
the public
was its,
access stuff.
was its initial was its initial life before it entered into syndication for a while.
So over 30 years.
Yep.
It's crazy.
Well, no, 11.
I'm talking about 88.
Oh, 30 years ago, yes.
Yeah. Like,
So
it has
that-
been a thing for more than 30 years, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things that
One iteration or another.
it went, and I think that's the thing is you never know what people are just going to dig. I mean, you have, and now there's a world, there are fans, Misties,
Yep.
just like,
You had one of the more successful Kickstarters in Kickstarter history.
Yep.
One of the first Kickstarters that I was aware of getting like attention from news outlets that don't just cover like that aren't like specifically entertainment news outlets.
Right.
It's like,
Yeah.
hey, this show made like $6 million. Like I can't. It was some number of millions of dollars, and it's like,
yeah, and they're sitting there going, what?
What amuses me about those situations is that anytime something like that happens, then that in and of itself is a free advertisement for the very crowdfunding service that it's on.
it's true.
It's like every time something like that happens, every time there's an MST3K or a Critical Role thing or whatever it
Or
is.
the potato salad one.
Yeah.
Potato salad one.
You don't know the potato salad Kickstarter?
I think you mentioned this, but I don't remember the specifics.
Okay, very, very short. Very, very, very short. A guy put together a Kickstarter for $45 to make potato salad.
Oh yeah, you didn't mention
And he ended up raising somewhere on the order of like $600,000.
Yeah. Well, there's always those weird one-off things like that, but yeah, the internet's weird. but-
I think that's one of the easiest takeaways from
yeah.
the internet is weird.
Yeah.
Aliens would not know what to do with the messages broadcasting out from our planet anymore.
But here's MST3K predates the internet.
Yes,
Right.
it does.
That's the fanzine underground network.
Right. Yeah.
I remember, I can't remember which episode it was, watching it, where they got a letter from someone in France talking about how much they loved MST3K, when it needs to be pointed out that, yes, they were on the Comedy Channel at that point, But you know where the Comedy Channel wasn't? France.
Yeah. Just keep circulating those tapes.
Right?
Someone was taping episodes for them and mailing them to France because they were people who just really loved the show.
That's funny.
And you got to realize, there's somebody that went over to France going, it was like, hey, Jacques, check this out. Watch this. Look, the robot.
And for once, I'm not the person saying something that can be construed as racist on the podcast.
I don't think
If it's a nationality, then.
Yeah. Nationality, especially with European. I'm not a walking hate crime. But, it's just one of those things of somebody,
Yeah.
Either
that or some Frenchie visited America and there was like, hey, dude,
Yeah.
this is great.
That's how I got introduced to Firefly. Visited America. No. Went down and visited.
From deep space, we always knew you were an alien.
Not that kind of alien.
Well, I imagine it might not even be like a mailing the tapes thing. It could be like somebody visits their friend in France and is like, here's an extra copy of this thing. Or someone, like you said, someone in France visits their friend or family in America.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I that does amuse me, though. I always think that's amusing when you have, like, unexpected fans in areas that don't even carry the... I mean, now with the internet, it's not really a thing as much anymore, but unless it happens to be a country where the internet is censored, like China or something, but
Yeah.
generally speaking, and
And
generally
even
free
then,
societies...
you can get tapes in.
Well, yeah, I mean, you can never fully... You can't stop the signal now. Like,
Right,
you
you
can
can't,
never
yeah.
fully control something like the internet,
Yep.
but...
Just as true.
Yeah.
But that's the power of fandom, because also you probably had, conventions where somebody has, their VCR hooked up to the TV in their room.
Well, I'm sure there's all kinds of, like, viewing parties for fans, right? I mean, it's
Yeah.
got to have been a thing,
Yeah.
at least especially early on before
Oh, yeah.
the
Yeah.
internet and all that,
Yeah. I mean, people will always find a way. And I guess that really comes down to, we love what we love. And I guess comes out to another corny saying, love will always find a way.
Aww.
I mean, what we love will always find a way to share.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, when you think about it, that's the most... That's the most like fitting way to consume it is to get a few people together and watch it, because that's the whole premise of the thing is a few people trying to survive the insanity that is on the screen.
Exactly.
Yes, the official plot is that, at least initially, Dr. Clayton Forrester of Deep 13 Laboratories.
And Frank and TV's Frank.
And originally it was another guy. TV's Frank was also the second banana that he got. He also ran Gizmotic Institute. Yeah, that's also where it begins. Sorry, Deep 13 was a little bit later. But anyhow, was trying to find a movie so bad it could be weaponized. So he took a hostage and made him watch a bunch of bad movies. And the only reason that he's capable of maintaining sanity is by making fun of what he watches.
Now, here's something
With his robot friends.
Well,
Yes.
here's something I find interesting about this is the premise says that the hostage, who is Joel himself initially, so by the way, they don't... Anyone who's in that world, apparently it's a thing where they don't like having to remember a different name, because it's always just the name of the person.
Yeah.
Like Joel and Mike, those are their actual names in real life, but I digress.
And Jonah, for that matter.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, it's a tradition at that point, so
Yeah.
I get it.
Right.
But what I don't understand is Joel is supposed to be a janitor, but then he just builds robots? Like, how can he build robots? How does he have that skill set if he's just a janitor?
I mean,
Remember,
he
it's
was
just a show.
Yeah, you should really just relax. Well, the MST3K mantra is another really important thing, which is some of the times you just need to remind yourself, it's just a show, I should stop worrying about
If
it.
you're worried about how he eats and breathes and other science facts,
yeah.
just remember
Well, that's
tell
like-
yourself it's just a show.
It's like sweating the science of explosions in
Yeah.
Star Wars.
Well,
just enjoy the explosions.
The theory that
That
I
makes
always
sense.
got behind was you'll notice it as that Joel, the janitor, was initially doing vacuuming with an accordion. So, yes.
What?
He's vacuuming up and he's creating suction by playing an accordion.
Okay.
In the intro. So you always get the impression that he's a really handy and sort of capable individual.
He's like a MacGyver who happens to be doing custodial work at the moment.
Yeah.
I mean, he wasn't technically he did a good job cleaning up the place. This is true. But he was never officially mentioned as a janitor. He was just another face in a red jumpsuit.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
God, I could go on there. MST is. I have a lot of fond memories about this was something that my whole family got together to watch a lot. So it was great to. I have a lot of very fond nostalgic memories for MST3K.
Yeah. See, and I've never been a watch TV all night long. I used to have 5 shows I used to watch. Quantum Leap at one point was one of them. MST3K, Stargate, Star Trek. Those were my things. So these were part of my memories of fandom.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it was one of those things you could watch and just the idea wasn't for it to be all that factual. It's it's just an excuse to watch bad movies and riff on them.
Yeah. And I mean the comedy's actually really dated now, but it's still funny.
Oh, yeah. Well, okay. So so the funny thing is that MST3K also pulls a lot from audience participation, from Rocky Horror.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's another thing that
we're talking about the history of the influences and stuff before.
You're right.
It happened. I was going to ask at some point, do you think that contributed to the?
I would be
concept?
I would be willing to assume as much.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's a pretty wide gulf. I don't know. It's hard to say because Rocky Horror came out in 1970, but how long did it take for that to become this big? That developed over time, right?
Okay,
whole,
I was going to Rocky Horror
participatory stuff.
I was going to midnight showings of Rocky Horror Picture Show in 1987.
And,
well, I rest my case then.
And it was 88 when MST came out.
Right?
So yeah.
Let's see here. Hang on a second.
Entirely possible. There's some influence there.
There probably is some overlap there. It's not something that I'm directly aware of. I'm honestly only construing the link to Svengoolie and such as well. It's just so incredibly similar that it's hard to believe that it's not an influence.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like how shoot.
One thing comes to mind is Weird Al and Dr. Demento.
Yeah, well, that's another thing that's probably very heavily an influence too.
Dr. Demento was a big influence on nerd culture.
Mm-hmm. It was the thing I was going to say is it's one of those things where you really have a difficult time believing that this was an influence. Joss Whedon claiming that he's never seen Outlaw Star, even though there's scenes that are almost
frame for frame,
almost completely fucking identical.
Right.
And I mean, sure. I mean, maybe he didn't, and they just managed to create something that's nigh on identical. But it's hard to believe that at least there's something at least subconsciously.
Right.
There.
Right.
So we talked a bit about MST and just it is in general, but we also promised to mention things about its. Let's see, what are we doing for time? Really, we've only been talking for 30 minutes. Huh. Okay. Well, we got more time than I thought. Sorry. Another thing we should really mention is how it's had an influence on like the influence that it has had on nerd culture and things along those lines.
Right.
And like the first thing that I would point to is like the rise of the internet critic, like along the lines of like the angry video game nerd and the nostalgia critic and people along those lines, who are very definitely just aping, like they are very definitely influenced by MST3K.
Yeah.
Many of them having outright acknowledged it, and some of them being like, well, yeah, I guess so, yeah, maybe, but I wasn't thinking about it. But whether you're thinking about it or not,
Right.
It's something that a lot of internet riff culture. We've mentioned this concept a lot, and probably pretty much anyone listening to us knows what we're talking about. We're talking about riffing something, and it's watching it and making fun of it,
As it
making
happens, yeah.
jokes.
And they made that culturally acceptable.
Yeah.
Because you're not supposed to talk during the movie. There's even a little thing at the front at the beginning says, but you know,
Yeah.
we ignore that.
Well, I mean, it's polite to not talk during the movie if it's a movie that that you haven't seen.
Yeah, if you're in a theater, but if you're
Yeah.
at home, it's all fair game.
Unless, of course, you're in a theater. Unless, of course, you are like me and my friend AJ when we went and saw X-Men Rise of the Phoenix Dark Phoenix, whatever the heck it was.
Mm-hmm.
We went and saw it on a Thursday afternoon, a Friday afternoon at the Hollywood Theaters downtown, and we were literally the only people in the theater.
Okay.
And so, you know what we did?
Yeah.
We took it to town.
That sounds extremely
And we
fun.
got a few laughs out of the projection booth.
So yeah, and the thing is that I think it's to the point where the audience becomes part of the participation.
Yeah.
Where you get angry video game critic and things like that. But I think
Nerd.
also angry.
People will rage at me in the comments, except we don't have a large enough community to rage at me in the comments. But
Damn you!
so obviously we need to make things that are factually inaccurate all the time, so that people will
come at
correct us.
Right. So yeah, I mean it's become part of culture.
Mm-hmm.
To have fun, poking fun at something, but not hate it.
Another thing you would see is on like a lot of DVD commentaries and stuff, you'd have a lot of that thing where like the actors and creators of the content would not straight up MST3K it, but like poke fun at their own stuff, at their own creations, and
Or talk about it. Yeah, I mean the commentary become commentary.
I'm reminded of it was, I think, Paul Bettany and Alan Tudyk and the producer of A Knight's Tale on the DVD commentary, and they slightly riffed a lot of things like, oh yeah, and this scene cost us $3 million to film. This set right here, $500,000, and it's like it was a common running joke of things that were very obviously very cheap.
yeah.
And how very much money they ended up spending on it, quote unquote.
Right.
It's one of those DVD commentaries I really highly recommend watching. One, because it's for a good movie, and two, just because the commentary is really funny.
Well, a lot of those are what made a lot of those commentaries so amusing is that you'd get people that would get thrown together because somebody on a board or in a suit or whatever would be like, we need a commentary for this thing. You always have a commentary. And nobody really has anything specific to say. So they just kind of fuck around for an hour and a half to 2.5 hours. Mm-hmm. And those are some of the best, actually, when they're just kind of there, like, and, especially if they, like, they have a good working relationship or, like, comedic chemistry or whatever. You see that a lot with, like, comedies or at least casts that like know each other, worked with each other before, where they're just kind of fucking around and filling the time, and it's fun.
The cast commentaries for the Lord of the Rings movies are similarly really good.
Yeah.
Right. You have Orlando.
Well, there's so
Bloom,
many great stories. So
Well,
it
you
makes
have
sense.
Orlando Bloom trying to be more serious than he really should be. Elijah Wood leading this cast. No, It's fucking Viggo Mortensen, man.
Well, there's a long storied history of the Lord of the Rings cast not taking shit so seriously, because I remember like they would have little like memes and like viral videos and stuff that happen, and then they'd get in on it like they're taking the hobbits to Isengard.
Yep.
Like it was actually a video of Orlando Bloom like moving his face back and forth doing the thing.
Yeah, during a Hobbit during a Hobbit
it's fantastic
filmings, he did. No, he actually even sang, "They're taking the hobbits," like
yeah,
did
no,
the
he
whole
went
thing.
full hog. It was great.
I'm reminded of another brief digression. John Rhys Davies played Gimli.
Yeah.
One of my favorite random stories from it was in the Two Towers commentary. It was talking about one of those wide tracking shots during them tracking people.
Yeah.
And it's like, and so I remember setting up for this scene, and my prop people, I had the two people were carrying my armor up this hill, and then another couple people were carrying my weapons up this hill. Then I went up the hill, and got into costume. Then went back down the hill, and then Peter tells me, "Okay, now I want you to run up that hill." It's like you know, these four people straining to carry all my shit up to the up the top of the hill, where the cameras and shit was, and then go down to the bottom of the hill. Now you're wearing 500 pounds of shit. Run
up that hill. So the funny thing is that MST3K, we're talking about its impact on culture. Mm-hmm. To kind of come back to
the actual meat of the episode.
Yeah. So, reading through some of my research on this, the MST3K actually eventually pushed the films that they mocked back into having value again.
Yep.
Yeah.
Specifically, the Gamera films.
Yep.
The Gamera films.
The MST is pretty much entirely credited with Gamera becoming popular in America again. Mm-hmm. After he was completely supplanted by Godzilla. By the way, at some point we should totally watch the Gamera films for like another Halloween episode. There's only 5 of them, as opposed to the 13 Godzilla movies we had to watch last year.
But yeah, and not everybody was real happy with the treatment of their films by the MST3K crew.
There are 3 words that I can say to point that out.
Okay.
Joe Don Baker has absolutely hated every single appearance he has had in because he was in Mitchell and he was in Final Justice, and he felt like they really he complained about what they did in Mitchell. So as a result, when they did Final Justice, they laid into him so hard.
And
Final Justice is, by the way, one of my favorite episodes.
Well, it's like the people that would. It's like people that would get upset with Weird Al stuff, and it's like, dude, just go with the flow. Like,
Yeah.
It's just promoting awareness of the thing.
Very few people have ever been mad at Weird Al. Like, even the whole Coolio being mad at Weird Al thing, wasn't Coolio being mad about Weird Al parodying his music? Mm-hmm. It was him being mad because Weird Al had told his producer to ask for permission. The producer had asked for permission. Coolio had said no,
right?
And then the producer told Weird Al that he had said yes.
Right.
The beef there was entirely
with the producer.
Yeah, was entirely the producer.
Thing.
Yeah, would didn't respect anyone's wishes, and because Weird Al's had said a number of times like he never got to parody Prince's music because Prince wouldn't let him.
Yeah.
And he respected that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, good lord, if anything was right for parody. and I'm a Prince fan, but I mean,
right.
I mean, when you're that unique and flamboyant, like,
yes,
it writes itself. It really does.
Well, but then not everybody was as, like Miles O'Keefe absolutely loved what they did to, because he always got shit for what was the one, Cave Dwellers.
How much O'Keefe is in this movie? Miles of it.
O'Keefe. Miles O'Keefe. 'Cause I remember watching that episode too. I remember
Cave Dwellers. What's fun about that is Cave Dwellers is actually the third movie of the Ator, the fighting Eagle trilogy, all featuring Miles O'Keefe.
right.
There was Ator the Fighting Eagle. There was Quest for the Mighty Sword, and there was the Cave Dwellers. Quest for the Mighty Sword I actually caught on public access TV about 11 years ago, just randomly. We caught it at the very beginning. It was me, my dad, and my mom, and we watched the whole thing because it was because
you couldn't look away, right?
We couldn't tell what is this?
Yeah.
What is this?
Especially since it's called Quest for the Mighty Sword. He literally gets the mighty sword in the first 15 minutes of the movie.
Wow.
But yeah, and not everybody's hated it. I mean,
Miles O'Keefe has really liked it.
Rex Reason, Adam West, which was the one he did Zombie Nightmare.
Well, Adam West strikes me as a good sport about everything.
Oh yeah,
Adam West parodies himself enough at this point.
Yeah.
Well, he did. Unfortunately, he's passed away now.
Yeah.
But he parodied himself enough. Gotta love the Batman the Animated Series episode where Adam West shows up as the Gray Ghost.
Yeah. Oh, and one of my favorite Adam West quotes of all time was it was in response to something about one of the more recent, like one of the Nolan Batman movies or something, and he's just like, I never had to say I'm Batman. I showed up, I wore the costume, people knew I was Batman. I was just like, damn straight, man. Damn straight.
the original.
You just show
Batman.
up, yeah, he's motherfucking Batman. Like, he doesn't have to say I'm Batman.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, of course. So
That amused
I actually really liked the I'm Batman line because it was a great introduction to the first time you got to see him in the full cape and cowl.
Well, that wasn't wasn't that in the original? Like,
It was in Batman Begins.
It was also in Batman.
No, it goes back to I think it goes back to the first Batman movie.
Who are you? I'm Batman.
Right.
And which, watching Michael Keaton deliver that line.
It's been a long time since I've seen that one, unfortunately.
Yeah, that was
Okay.
a great delivery. Yeah.
Well, and having watched him in Crazy People, or no, The Dream King, because watching him play off of Doc Brown, Christopher Lloyd,
Yeah.
and Peter Boyle, watching that team play together in comedic. There's a line in there where someone asks, "Who are you?" and he says, "I'm an escaped mental patient with a history of violence."
That's a weird meta thing there.
Right, and then I'm going, this line would work just as well here too. I'm an escaped mental patient with a history of violence. I'm Batman. Because I love the opening scene in Batman. Because it's like the guy, is like, don't even home without it, going through the purse. And then getting the crap beat out of him and dragged back,
I really need to rewatch the original Batman again. I haven't seen it in a long time.
Oh, I've got it on DVD
it's
if
great.
you want it, man. It's
Yeah, I'm
amazing.
gonna have to take you up on that.
Yeah, so that was like a 3-degree digression.
Yeah.
Batman via Adam West via people not taking themselves so seriously when their stuff is
Right.
on the show.
Well, and I think Michael Keaton would be a good sport about it.
He strikes me as
Although at the same time, I don't think Michael Keaton's ever been anything that's really bad enough to
merit it.
Right,
This
so-
is
to
true.
merit a treatment.
Gold star for Michael Keaton, I guess.
Right?
Because that is one thing that is kind of required for the MST3K treatment. You do need a movie that is
really bad.
Well, not
But
that's really
it has to
bad.
be entertainingly.
It has to be bad, but it has to be bad in an entertain. You're right.
Like, there's all sorts of
hilariously
terrible
bad.
movies that come out these days, but they wouldn't be a fun riff track situation.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have to be
you could-
hilariously
like,
bad.
You could
Yes.
put something out like the Emoji Movie, Like that's just some mediocre, ridiculous garbage that shouldn't exist. But it wouldn't be fun.
It needs to be a movie that's bad and not but not mediocre.
Right.
Yeah, because
A lot of content these days is just so meh.
You need something that is bad enough that you can come up with the many names
And also a lot of the mediocrity, a lot of the mediocre stuff is like cynical people making a decision to make it even though they know it sucks.
Yeah.
It doesn't have the earnestness of what we described earlier.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's like immediately disqualified.
Right.
Because I mean, yeah, you can absolutely, oh, by the way, Riff Tracks, by the way, is Michael Nelson and Kevin Murphy and what's his name, Corbett. I can't remember his first name suddenly.
Yeah, I can't either, but I know who you're
Bill
talking
Corbett.
about. Maybe, I don't know.
But it was the Pearl Forrester era MST3K Mike and the Bots.
Yeah.
Bill Corbett.
Bill Corbett. Okay, I was right.
To the internet.
Yes. And that is Riff Tracks. So like they're still just doing it, and they're just not doing it with the Shadowrama bobbing their heads back and forth while they talk in front of the thing. And they're still like, and you know they still pick out great things to make fun of, and by great things I mean Birdemic.
Oh wow.
And Sharknado.
Oh my gosh.
God, yes.
And
I'm intrigued.
and have you not seen Sharknado?
I mean, no, I've never actually watched the movie. I'm very aware of it. I never actually saw it.
Yeah, as I say, I'm very aware of
It's not that I haven't. No, what I'm intrigued about is the prospect of seeing the riff tracks for these obviously ridiculous things.
Yeah.
Like, you know.
Yeah.
It didn't even cross my mind to watch the riff track for this thing because I didn't even watch the movie. But now I'm actually intrigued.
Right.
Birdemic. That was also on How Did This Get Made? It's a
Freaking Birdemic.
great podcast of. Well, it's pretty self-explanatory. Crappy movies and discussing
How did this get made?
How exactly did this get made?
Should check that out.
Well, when you look at Manos, Hand of Fate.
Manos, the Hand of Fate, one of the most famous MST episodes.
Every frame of this movie looks like someone's last known photograph. Which is the most common description of that movie using that particular riff from MST3K.
Yep.
And you know, and
Well, another thing that occurs to me is with my personal like exposure or experience with MST3K is there's a thing that would I don't know if you're familiar with this, but there's a little internet phenomena thing. And it was YTMND, where it would just play.
You're the man now, dog.
Yeah. Yes, and that went on. That was the genesis for it, and then it would become a whole like thing where people would put up whatever funny recurring sound effect or track or whatever from a movie or a show or whatever. It became this whole thing. And and that was where it all started, from Finding Force to the ridiculousness of Sean Connery saying "You're the man now, dog."
And which is weird because Finding Forrester is a really good movie.
Oh yeah, I'm sure it's a great movie, but that's the only thing that people remember is the most ridiculous part of him with a straight face saying "You're the man now, dog," which is inherently ridiculous. I mean, it's Sean Connery saying "You're the man now, dog."
Yep.
Who cannot appreciate the silliness of that? But
This is true.
Anyway, point is, when that became kind of a thing, and I would people in like forums I would read would like share their particular YTMND links, and some would be pretty hilarious. And that was one of those ones that I came across, and there were many of them, MST3K ones, and it was the whole thing we talked about earlier, where it's like we put our faith in. Blast hard cheese, Bolt Vanderhuge, Big McLarge, all this
Slab Johnson.
Yeah, all those ridiculous. There's like 20 of those fucking things. But that was always one of my favorite bits.
That was actually, I think, probably my favorite random Geek shirt that I saw at VisionCon last year. Because he visited our booth, and it was a shirt with a name tag that says "Hi, my name is," and it had all the names, and they were all crossed out except for Jack Ryder at the bottom, like down at his gut.
Yeah. Okay, so that was the Jack Ryder bit.
Yes.
There we go.
Okay.
Yeah, here's the shirt. Actually, it's none of them are crossed out.
No, they're not crossed. I thought they were crossed out.
No, it's Dave Ryder at the top.
David Ryder, not Jack Ryder.
Right,
Sorry.
and it's slab bulkhead fridge.
Slap bulkhead, yeah, that was one of the ones.
Yeah.
And take a look at this. Yeah, it's pretty great. Yeah, I don't. The funny thing about it is they had so many names on that bit that the Y Team and D thing didn't have a long enough runtime before it had to loop the thing. So only had got like half the names in there.
Right, exactly.
There are just so fucking many of these things. It's great. But yeah, they did a few of the. Bolt Vanner Huge was one of them. Some of them. Oh, Thick McRun Fast. Yeah.
Yes.
Blast Hard Cheese. Yeah.
Yeah, blast hard cheese.
Punch Rock Groin.
Yeah.
That's another one they mentioned. Yeah. And Stump Chunkman. Yeah, there's some. Oh yeah,
Flint
Gristle
Rock.
McThornbody. Yeah, that was another one.
What, Flint Rock Jaw?
They got about a dozen in there in the sound effect.
Bob Johnson. Oh wait.
Crunch butt steak. Oh god, it's so great.
Roll fizzle beef.
Yeah.
Which I named my character in our Torchlight 2 playthrough after.
That's great.
Blast thick neck,
Yep.
crunch butt steak, slab squat thrust.
Like, it is hard. Like,
lump beef broth.
so this is, by the way, Experiment 820 Space Mutiny. Very easily one of their best episodes.
Yeah. Cave Dwellers was it?
Cave Dwellers
Yeah,
is
Cave
a really
Dwellers.
good one.
Yeah, of course. You said you had your tradition, your annual tradition of
Annual tradition?
I watch Santa Claus Conquers the Martians every year.
Conquers. Yes, thank you. Santa Claus as the Martians.
Santa Claus, like, it's actually not all that great an episode, but at this point it's a tradition. But like ones I can really go back to anytime: Space Mutiny, Manos in the Hands of Fate, Mitchell, Final Justice, the Giant Gila Monster. Oh man, the Giant Gila Monster. And the Lord said, "Die, children, die."
Wait, what was that last one?
The Giant Gila Monster.
How do you Hilo Monster?
Gila. G-I-L-A. Gila.
G-I-L-A. Okay. Mm-hmm. I'm making a short list here because I've been meaning to watch some more of this stuff, and I want to start with the best of the best.
Yeah, Giant Gila Monster is really good. Any of the Gamera ones, pretty much any of the Gamera movies, and also definitely Godzilla vs. Megalon, if you can get your hands on it.
Gotcha.
Because, like, oh man, Godzilla vs. Megalon is great. Rex Dart, Eskimo Spy.
Well, I'll have a special appreciation for it now that I've watched all those movies. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
But yeah, those are episodes I could go back to anytime.
Yeah.
There's so many of them. Oh, Warrior of the Lost World's also really good. And The Day the Earth Froze. There were a lot. Here's the thing. There have been a lot of episodes.
Oh yeah, a ton of them.
Yeah. So Joel, and going back, kind of digging through the history on it, evidently Silent Running was the primary influence on the premise.
What's Silent Running?
Silent Running is an old science fiction film set in the future, and it's a very sad one. Basically, one guy is the last crew member of a spaceship containing Earth's last surviving forests, and he has two. His companions are basically three robots.
Oh, so an old science fiction movie was the premise for the show about old science fiction movies?
Yeah. Now the thing is that Silent Running is a classic.
So in an odd twist, it's actually a good movie.
It is actually a good movie.
Yeah.
Let's see here, reception, 67% in positive reviews on Rotten Tomatoes.
Oh, Overdrawn in the Memory Bank also was a really good one.
Okay.
Oh, and the Hercules one episodes.
Yeah. Oh God, the Arnold Schwarzenegger Hercules.
No. Not the Arnold Schwarzenegger Hercules. That's part of what's like no.
What makes it so funny?
It predates Arnold Schwarzenegger
Or was it
Hercules.
the Ferrigno version? 'Cause I thought Lou Ferrigno did one too.
Hercules and the Captive Women specifically, which is who played Hercules? Some Italian guy, I can't remember.
I don't really know any of the Hercules movie stuff. I just know there's the Kevin Sorbo show, and then there's the Disney version of it. I don't remember the actual like old school Hercules movies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, these were old school Italian Hercules movies.
Yeah.
So.
Is there a significance to the fact that they're Italian cinema?
That means they're badly overdubbed.
Oh, okay.
Which you know it helps.
Yeah.
Yeah, MST3K. I mean, again, when it comes back down to it, I mean, it's just people loving what they do.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, simplest terms, that is the gist of it. I mean, starting in '88
Yeah.
with VHS tapes,
Mm-hmm.
and now it's one of the top shows on TV ever. It's one of the top 25 cult shows.
Mm-hmm.
It's
You almost can't call it a cult show anymore
because it has defined mainstream,
because the cult is too big.
right?
Right.
But it's one of those things that I mean, it took off, and it's the thing. It's because people loved it,
Yeah.
you know, and it was because it was made by people who loved it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what comes down to nerddom, you know,
Yeah.
because all right,
To get deeply philosophical again, go for it, Ben.
well, it's like, okay, when you think Star Wars, one of the biggest things that come out of that, Hardware Wars. Completely low budget film that is a fucking legend.
I haven't seen Hardware Wars in years.
But it's a goddamn legend.
Yes, it is.
It was a low budget, like what, 20-minute movie. It's like a really short ass movie. And just because people loved what they were doing, they were having fun.
Yeah.
Troops. You know, which got kind of parodied in The Mandalorian.
In the freaking Mandalorian, yeah, no,
Yeah.
like the two stormtroopers sitting around talking to each other definitely was like, oh man, they are homaging troops right here.
Yeah, they're pulling from Troops.
Let me push up my non-existent glasses here. Actually, those were scout troopers.
Yeah.
They are stormtroopers, but a subcategory that is distinct.
Yeah, exactly.
Not to be confused with snow troopers or swamp troopers or death troopers.
There you go.
But yeah, that's
I
definitely
love
that's
the
a clear homage.
actually in there too. I recently discovered that show on College Humor.
I mean, and it's. I mean, those are the things that catch on.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, another quick College Humor shout out. Zach Morris's Trash. That series of videos is fantastic. I grew up with Saved by the Bell, loved that show as a kid, and it goes through and systemically shows what a terrible human being Zach Morris is on every level at almost all times. And it's like shocking to go back to and be like, wow, yeah, he was a real dick.
Yeah.
Just a little aside
Yeah.
here. I would have signal boosted that earlier if it had come to my brain.
Other brief shout outs to College Humor series. They're Captain Planet with Don Cheadle.
Wait, what?
Don Cheadle is Captain Planet.
Okay, now
College Humor.
I must watch this.
Yes, you must.
See, but those are the things. I mean, Malice Hand of Fate was as the worst movie ever. It was a guy doing something on a dare. He was a salesman.
Yeah.
I think he was a mortuary salesman or something like
It was
that.
something, yeah.
Something macabre.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, he did it on a dare from a friend, as I recall.
It's so funny, like the ripple effects that these choices have. It's like because that guy did a thing on a dare that led to an episode of MST3K, which became legendary and is still being talked about to this day.
Yep.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Like it's just so hilarious how things work out like that sometimes.
He also starred in the guy also started in film. Starred in film.
Let me see here.
Oh, quick aside.
Directed, produced, and written by Harold P. Warren.
There you go.
L.P. Warren.
What, Neil? What was that movie where you showed us the clip that like I kick ass for the Lord? Like what was that?
That was
That's Dead Enders, which is Peter Jackson.
Yeah, well, Peter Jackson does a lot of weird shit. I mean,
Peter Jackson
bad taste.
before yeah. I believe it was the Dead Enders. Might have been. I got to double check. I'm pretty sure it was Dead Enders.
That felt like a movie that would totally be rife for the 3K treatment.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, that was just such a great movie.
Sorry, no, Brain Dead.
Oh, Brain Dead. That's right. I know Dead was in there somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which the DVDs these days will commonly point out from the director of Lord of the Rings, Peter Jackson.
Oh my god. I just love that's one of the most amusing things about his his success is that now they go back through all of his old weird shit and they're just like from the director of Lord of the Rings.
Here's this thing of here's this pile of steaming shit.
Here's Brain Dead, which was his third movie, similar, which was after Bad Taste.
Yes, Bad Taste.
And Meet the Feebles.
Oh my god. Bad Taste is amazing.
Right. So the director of Mount of Sound of Fate was a fertilizer salesman.
Oh my gosh, the jokes write themselves.
Yes, the irony just jumps out and smacks you in the face.
And the guy playing Torgo, it was supposed to be a satyr. But they couldn't figure out how to make it look how to make it look right, so he just had big knees.
Right.
Because he had like a prosthesis that he was wearing. Just part of why he walked so badly, because he couldn't really walk in it.
Yeah, I was just like, what? Yeah. I mean, but these are things and that's what makes something so bad it's good. I mean, yeah, they were running around with handmade props and stuff like that. Now they're one of the top shows ever. Top rated shows ever. Mm-hmm. Okay, so another thing. The Martian. Multi-million-dollar movie.
Uh-huh. It's a book, too.
You know what it originally was? This guy writing this science fiction stuff, hard science, on his website.
Yep.
I'm
not a fan, but the Twilight franchise is another good example of this.
Actually, 50 Shades is...
Twilight actually was a pretty much original IP. 50 Shades was originally Twilight fanfic.
Well, yeah, I guess 50 Shades is the better example, yeah, because that was just a silly Twilight fanfic with, as you say, man, the serial number filed off.
The ISBN filed off, yeah.
Well, literally, because like it did originate as
its
Twilight.
It's horrifying origin story.
Yeah, no, it was
Twilight actually isn't like
Twilight's rather teen.
I was forced to sort of I was kind of challenged to re-examine Twilight at one point, and
the movies or the books?
Yes,
both.
Yeah.
Oh, you poor man.
And here's the thing: they're not bad. They're not great.
Right.
But they're not bad. They didn't really deserve or merit nearly the amounts of vitriol that they got, or the amount of praise and adulation.
Yeah.
I would agree with the latter half of that statement. The former half of that statement is the idea that every girl wants her boyfriend to be like Edward. That's when you think in terms of, hey, I want my boyfriend to basically take the engine out of my car if he doesn't want me to go see somebody. No. So, you know.
Well, I mean, just because something is popular doesn't mean they're internalizing it, Ben.
Right.
Yeah.
No, but it's
But no,
it's
like
the idea that they glorify that.
But at
Yeah.
the same time, like it really it
was mediocre writing.
It was entirely mediocre and didn't really deserve nearly so much of the praise or the hate that it got. A lot of the hate that it got was simply because it's like, if you look at it, it's really easy and popular to hate on things that are marketed towards
Sure.
adolescent women.
Well, I mean,
and the thing that I have to look at, you know, as a writer, is I may think the writing's mediocre, but you know what? The marketing was dead on. She knew her market and she wrote to them.
Oh yeah,
That was a fucking love letter.
just because you don't like a thing doesn't mean there's not lessons to be learned. in there.
Exactly.
And I will say this: I actually watched the first movie to see what all the hubbub was about, and I thought it was all right. Like, it was worth watching. But then when I saw the trailer for the sequel, I'm like, holy shit, this looks so bad. I'm done.
Right, exactly.
Then I saw the reviews. And I was like, okay, yeah, I'm definitely done. I'm not gonna waste my time watching total crap.
Right, but to get from there, you know, the author of 50 Shades started off as Twilight BDSM fan fiction.
and
Right.
and 50 Shades does deserve every single bit of hate that it's ever gotten.
I would agree.
It's bad writing.
Yeah.
It's bad writing.
I have read better porn.
Well, that's what's interesting is that what was the I think it was what's now known as fandom. It was like Screen Junkies at the time, but they did this thing about they did a list of like sexy movies, erotic movies, or whatever, and then like they did a counter list of like the least appealing ones, and that was on the list of the least appealing. They're like, it has this weird middle ground where it's like it's done really poorly, and it's actually not like interesting at all. There's nothing sexy about it. It's just awkward and silly and dumb.
Right.
So it's like it's the worst of both worlds. It's like it's just bad on a generic level, and then it's also not even exciting on some sort of like titillating level either. It's like bad at both things.
But
And
by the
friends of
same
mine
token-
in the BDSM community also complain that it's a really horrible misrepresentation.
It really is.
Right.
But here's the other thing too. That
Again,
the lesson
Addams Family. If you're looking for a good example, Addams Family.
family, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I just want to bang that drum real quick. Going.
No, yeah.
They're like they're just about
that
like
drum too. Yeah, I would bang Morticia's drum too. So, anyways, which now when I think of it in BDSM terms, I'm going okay. Anyways, but again, though, 50 Shades of Grey, the 50 Shades series, again, excellent at finding its market audience and appealing to them, appealing the fuck off.
It dubbed a whole term that is mommy porn.
Yeah, exactly. Especially
Porn for moms.
especially with e-readers, you know. And I know an author who has made a living off of erotica. I know several authors who have made their livings off of both erotica and romance.
It's a genre like anything else.
Exactly, and people want it. There's an audience for it. You have to appeal to them, and 50 Shades, you know, basically.
I mean, Chuck Tingle.
It's just the next. It's the next
Yeah.
iteration of the like Harlequin paperback shit that was like all the rage back in the day.
Yep.
Like
Exactly. Yeah, and Chuck Tingle. The thing with Chuck Tingle is he's parodying himself.
Yes.
He himself is a parody, or she. I don't know.
They themselves are a
Anyway.
parody.
Yeah.
we're way off the reservation.
Yes.
But
Let's
this
get
goes
back
back
on
to this goes back to these are things that people enjoy doing. 50 Shades. Chuck Tingle, having fun every step of the way.
Yeah.
You know, then you get into some of these. You know, The Martian. Guy was just doing what he loved, writing what he loved. You know, and not looking to do the thing.
Yep.
I mean, hell, I got started writing a fun zombie book. You know, decided to self-publish it, and suddenly I'm going, oh, hey, I can quit my damn job. You know, a few books later. I mean, I think
Yeah.
if I'm going to stand on the soapbox, you know, it's, aim for what you love, have fun what you're doing. It's one thing, you know,
Yeah.
I want to make money at what I do, but you have to have that passion for what you do. You have to enjoy what you do.
Yeah.
but it's okay also. Yeah, that's another soapbox. But I think that's the thing is that where it comes from is people love it. I mean, Star Trek came back from what? The fans.
Yep. And MST, to bring it back around, they kept circulating tapes for a long time until they finally came to a contract with Shout Factory to be able to release DVDs again, which required the reacquisition of production licenses, which was no mean feat. There's a reason those DVDs are almost prohibitively expensive, unfortunately.
Right.
And then the fans circulated the tapes enough to kickstart a new season of it on Netflix.
Right.
And that was successful enough to get a second season on Netflix, but unfortunately not successful to get a third.
Right.
But Netflix also has weird,
Well, and and I guess the same thing comes up with Sharknado. Let me make a bad movie.
Yeah.
But also when it comes to one of the things we all love, MST3K. That's what we're talking about. Critical Role. That is powered 100% by fandom.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this comes back to the power behind.
It's made by fans for fans too.
Exactly, is the power behind sci-fi and pop culture anymore is in the fans.
Mm-hmm.
And that's another thing where, like, Critical Role is another one of those things where it's like, became so successful, you can't really call it a cult thing anymore.
No, you can't.
It's gotten a point where, well, and especially whenever that, whenever the animated series comes out, then it'll be ridiculous the amount of exposure it'll have at that point when you've got it, as a major, show release on Amazon Prime,
So, and here's what I'm expecting. At some point, someone's going to go, hey, what if we made a live-action movie based on something Matt Mercer ran?
I don't know. I mean, it's going to take a while for it to be done right. I'm sure it'll happen at some point. And you have
I agree.
Joe Manganiello, a.k.a. Mango Jello, as I like to call him, out there kind of shopping around for the right group to do a D&D movie. And specifically, he's a big fan of the Dragonlance setting for it, and that's probably what it's going to be. And there's been such a rich history of quality books and stuff for that.
Yeah,
and his big point was, don't just do it to do the thing, to have the brand up there. Make a really good fantasy movie with a really good story and of any good movie that happens to be D&D.
Right.
So I have faith that in the long term it will happen. It's just going to take a while before it happens.
Yeah.
But better late than never, I guess.
Right. But yeah, MST3K, takes its roots all the way back to, I think, I hesitate. Well, I guess you could be saying it's the renaissance of fandom, or the pioneer era of fandom, which is the 80s and 90s.
Mm-hmm.
Because that was when technology was getting to the point where...
I'd say right now we're probably in the main fandom renaissance.
I could agree with that. Or we're almost in the Industrial Revolution.
Well, the thing about it is, you don't really know how much time is required to really look back and accurately identify these little stages of history, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Because we're talking about when you're talking about something that's that relatively new, it's hard to say. A good example I like to use is video games, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can talk about video game history and culture and all this stuff, but they've only been around a relatively short period of time when you compare it to radio or
On the upside, that means that their history is much more easily observable.
Right.
Yeah, and well, not only that, but you actually have people taking it seriously. Where you actually have a video game history. I forgot all the official names, but there are people that are actually cataloging and archiving games and code and some of this stuff,
which is really important actually, because it's
Right.
something that very few people did in the early days, especially
Absolutely.
old DOS games and such, and a lot of those are being lost because it's hard to put together hardware that things can be run on.
Well,
Like,
it's different than just like, say, books where it's like, okay, it's a straightforward proposition. You have these books and then you digitize them and then that's it.
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
there's all this changing stuff with
it's
codes
really
and platforms
hard to
and
get
technology.
something that can run, say, Mule.
Right.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, was why the Mule in Firefly was called Mule.
Right.
It was based off of an old DOS game called Mule.
Yeah. Deep cut.
Yep.
Well, and you know, again, it comes back down to like what we're doing. We're fans, riffing on fandom, you know, giving our thing, you know, and sending it out there for people. We don't have that following yet, but you know, who knows? One day,
400 RSS subscribers.
hey, there you go. You know,
80 people like us on Facebook.
there you go. So it's,
All of them are on my friends list. That's not true, actually. 2 people who like our Facebook page are not on my friends list.
Right.
They're on yours.
probably a mutual friends list too. But you know, it's just one of those things of this is where fandom and culture begins, is with the fans.
Mm-hmm. So
I don't have anything too terribly profound to say.
yeah, I feel like it's probably a pretty good place to stop it, honestly.
Pretty good final thought.
Yeah. In 2 weeks, we will be talking about a video game that these two have not yet played that I have.
For those who can't see, he pointed at me and Mike.
The other two,
The other 2 people.
the other 2 people in this
It's a
podcast.
safe bet.
Right, but still, it's
No,
radio.
instead, I'm actually pointing at the 2 people in the room that haven't said a word in the last hour and a half.
They're going to play it for us and give us their impressions.
Right?
We actually have a few episodes kind of planned for upcoming, but gonna leave things a little vague for now. But we actually have a plan going forward for the next couple 3 episodes. So
Right?
Things and stuff.
things and stuff, indeed. This has been myself, Neil,
The one true Ben.
Mike?
and we will talk to you in 2 weeks on Geek Fanthology. This podcast is a production of Working Theory Productions. It was brought to you by the letter E and the number 97. Opening theme is Ultra Mega Hyper Storm, and ending theme is March of the Mind, both by Kevin MacLeod. If you enjoyed this podcast or know someone who would, please consider sharing it on your social media, sending us an email, leaving us a comment, rating us on iTunes, liking and subscribing on YouTube, pretty much any of those things that really helps the algorithm. If you really enjoyed this podcast, please consider supporting us, either by making a one-time donation on our website through PayPal, or a reoccurring one through Patreon at patreon.com/workingtheory. A final thought. Keep circulating the links. And hit the button, Frank.